I don't expect much from the New York Times anymore, but every once in a while, I'm mildly stunned with the lack of urgency with which they are approaching this upcoming election and its potential consequences to the American people. In light of Donald saying that he was going to turn the American military against United States citizens, this is what the New York Times had to say. Never before has a presidential nominee, let alone a former president, openly suggesting turning the military on American citizens simply because they oppose his candidacy. As he escalates his threats of political retribution, Donald is offering voters the choice of a very different and far less democratic form of government. Far less democratic? That is a fascinating way of describing the existential threat posed by the Republican nominee for the presidency. Here's Donald with one of his new favorite talking points.
The enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country, that's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
It's not entirely clear from that clip to whom he's referring when he says the enemy within. So very helpfully, he expanded upon this point during a so-called town hall with Fox hack Harris Faulkner, during which he said this.
You know what they are? They're a party of sound bites. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists and fascists, and they're sick. They're dangerous for our country. We have China, we have Russia, we have all these countries. If you have a smart president, they can all be handled. The more difficult are, the Pelosi's, these people, they're so sick.
All right. In the first clip, Donald may well have been talking about undocumented workers. In this clip, we know he's talking about Americans, and not only Americans, but specifically his perceived political enemies. He refers to people like Adam Schiff. He refers to people like Nancy Pelosi. So the enemy from within, as far as Donald Trump is concerned, is us. At a rally in Wisconsin, Vice President Kamala Harris reminded us that many people in Donald's administration have come out against him, have explained why, and have endorsed her. But I want to focus on one thing she said specifically that is a direct quote from General Mark Milley.
Donald Trump's top general has called Trump, and I quote, fascist to the core.
General Milley gets it exactly right. Welcome to This Week in Fascism.
Boo, you suck!
Since the beginning of this long nightmare, Donald has consistently gone after undocumented workers, especially immigrants of color, in order to keep his base enraged and engaged. He has falsely claimed that a large percentage of them are rapists and murderers, just as he's also lied about how many immigrants come over the border. He's often put that number well in excess of 25 million people. And the reason he does this is because he wants his followers to be terrified at all times, so they will actually believe what Donald says here.
These are the people that we have coming into our country, and we're now known as, and all throughout the world, as an occupied country. We're an occupied country, can you believe?
But of course, Donald doesn't confine his hatred to any one group of people, as we've seen based on the kinds of stochastic terrorism he's engaged in against the Ohio town of Springfield. There's a group of Haitian immigrants there who are here legally. But Donald doesn't care what their designation is. And this is what he had to say about it.
I mean, look at Springfield, where 30,000 illegal immigrants are dropped, and they may have done it through a certain little trick, but they are illegal immigrants as far as I'm concerned.
Despite J.D. Vance's and Donald Trump's lying about the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, who honestly are, by all counts, productive as well as legal members of Springfield, Ohio, a town they helped, were indeed instrumental in bringing back from the brink of bankruptcy and turning back into a vital and thriving community. But Donald needs his scapegoats, and what he told us there is he doesn't really care if somebody's here legally or not, because if it's up to him, and if he gets back into the White House, it may well be. If he doesn't like the color of your skin, guess what? You are out of luck. This is just one of the many reasons Donald should be allowed nowhere near the levers of power again. But of course, his attacks aren't confined to communities either. One of his favorite talking points is that the media are the enemy of the people. The media promotes fake news, and the media should be shut down in certain instances if it is not willing to serve as his propaganda arm. This is what Donald had to say after 60 Minutes released an edited excerpt from the interview Vice President Harris did with them. 60 Minutes is a major part of the news organization of CBS, which has just created the greatest fraud in broadcast history. CBS should lose its license, and it should be bid out to the highest bidder, as should all other broadcast licenses, because they are just as corrupt as CBS and maybe even worse. So 2 things here. First of all, editing interviews for length and clarity is standard operating procedure, right? Secondly, Donald was invited to 60 Minutes as well, and he, being the coward he is, decided not to show up. Suppressing the media will be at the top of Donald's list if he gets back into the White House. Here's a question I've been hoping that somebody with access to Vice President Harris would ask.
And the other, Donald Trump, is about taking us backward.
The other is about fascism. Why can't we just say it?
Yes, we can say that.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you to Charlemagne the God for asking the question. And also my gratitude to Vice President Harris for answering it correctly. But let's just make absolutely certain the New York Times has gotten the memo. How would you describe a so-called leader whose followers do this?
Wow, look at this beautiful swastikas. There we go, white power. Hail Trump. Yeah, make America white again. Woo, woo, woo.
That's 1 week in America. That is 1 week of the Republican nominee's campaign. That is 1 week of increasingly violent and fascistic rhetoric coming from Donald Trump, his minions, his surrogates, and his supporters. So, New York Times, I ask you this question. Do you think it's about time we tell it like it is? Do you think it's about time we inform the American people that the Republican nominee for the presidency of the United States of America is a fucking fascist?